That wraps up business for us. Time now to take a look at what's grabbing the headlines in French papers. Clément Bonnereau joins me now. Good morning, Clément.
Good morning.
We've been talking about it all morning, the final debate of the left-wing primaries. The remaining candidates, Benoît Hamon and Manuel Valls.
That's right, absolutely. Well, commentators were hoping for a real boxing match where the two candidates would spell out their differences, and they did that to an extent. But as Le Monde says, it was un débat à fleuret moucheté, which means literally it's a fencing metaphor, a debate with a blunted foil, a blunted sword, meaning it was actually very polite and not as tense as commentators had been expecting. Le Monde writes that both Manuel Valls and Benoît Hamon were eager to show that despite their differences, they actually respect each other. Libération agrees. The left-wing newspaper says it was indeed a polite debate. Both candidates stood firm on their positions, but were careful not to be too critical of each other.
Right, well, talk us through, Clément. What exactly are the differences between the two candidates?
Well, as Libération puts it, yesterday's debate was between credibility and idealism. Valls is widely seen as a very capable, a very competent candidate, one who's realistic about what can be done in government, but also one who's betrayed left-wing ideas and is he's seen as both too liberal economically and conservative on social issues. Hamon, on the other hand, is very popular with more left-leaning voters, particularly with his main proposal, which is to introduce a universal basic income. But at the same time, he's seen as someone who's perhaps too idealistic and not really serious about becoming president.
Right, well, how have the left-wing primaries been so far? I mean, have they been a success, essentially?
Well, turnout for the first round, which was on Sunday, was higher than expected. Some 1.6 million people cast their ballots. Organisers were actually expecting, or rather fearing, a turnout of less than 1 million people. The debates have also been, as we've said, very polite. All the candidates have avoided trading personal attacks in an effort to really show a united front. But as Le Figaro notes, these primaries have done nothing to address the real issue, which is that the left is divided. As it stands, the candidate who wins these primaries stands very little chance of actually winning the presidential election in May. Whoever wins this primary will face fierce competition both on the right with Emmanuel Macron, who's a former economy minister, and he's running as an independent, and on the left with Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who's running on an anti-establishment, anti-big business and anti-trade platform.
Right, well, if we move away from the socialist primaries for a second and we look at the conservative side of things, François Fillon even, is facing allegations that he had a fake or fictitious job for his wife, which paid something like €500,000 over 8 years.
Absolutely, that's a lot of money and quite a big allegation. Liberal daily L'Opinion, is calling it a major blow to presidential candidate François Fillon. Fillon, la déflagration. The weekly paper Le Canard Enchaîné broke the story yesterday, revealing that Penelope Fillon, and I'm saying Penelope and not Penelope because she's actually Welsh, received payslips for being a parliamentary assistant for her husband, except that apparently she never actually worked for Parliament.
OK, so interesting. Why do these corruption scandals seem to come up at the times like this when, there are elections coming up, essentially?
Well, I mean, as La Croix this morning says in its editorial, and it's a particularly interesting answer to your question, the Catholic paper writes that it's not the first time, actually, as you said, a French politician has been accused of creating a fictitious job for a family member. Well, that's because there are hardly any rules preventing those types of conflicts of interest in France. Until 2013, French MPs, or indeed cabinet members, were not legally required to actually reveal the identity of their aides.
OK, well, let's finish on a lighter note then, Clément. France's handball team will be playing against Slovenia in the championships.
That's right. Just take a look at this photo on the front page of Le Figaro. France is getting excited about tonight's match. The French are favourites to retain the title they won in Qatar 2 years ago, and they're the only Rio 2016 semi-finalists to make it to the last four. Victory tonight will give them a place in the final against either Norway or Croatia.
All right, Clément Bonnereau, that's where we leave it for now. Thank you very much for that roundup of the French papers. All right, we're going to take a short break. Coming up, though, on the other side, we'll have a report on domestic violence in Russia, that coming from our team on the ground. Do stay tuned. You're watching France 24.